Did you think I was gonna perform? This is my ballet class from when I was 8 years old. Isn't it adorable? A bunch of tiny girls in pretty pink tutus dancing with all their heart. What we often hear is how cute and what a good job they're doing. However, what we often don't are the laughs, the reallys, and statements such as, "What will you even get out of it?" This is what's told to these very girls when they're older and start to take it seriously. No, I'm not here to perform today. I'm here to talk about this. These words, while said from a place of mere doubt and reflecting a lack of knowledge of the art form, spark uncertainty in some of the most formative and vulnerable years of a dancer's life. It's harder than it looks. Look that, pretty simple, right? You kick your leg up, hold your ankle, bend your back, tilt your head behind, and point your toes. Easy. But that is only possible after weeks of this. There comes a point in a ballerina's life where she tries on her first pair of pointe shoes. That is what it takes to step in one. We're kind of like diamonds. If that black, deformed coal isn't chiseled and broken, you can't really get something that sparkles. The tip of the shoe is made to resemble wood. The foot is afloat when in the shoe. We press and bend and stretch our toes to be strong enough to do what we love. But this isn't suffering. This is the kind of pain that shapes and not scars. It also isn't new that most dancers, including myself, have felt and exercised the need to not eat merely because we're insecure of how our bodies were shaped. Even worse, over 16% of ballet dancers develop eating disorders just because they feel the need to look a certain way. You can see that pushing through the consistently exhausting parts of what you live for really doesn't seem kind to your body. So my question is, why do we keep going? It seems insane, right? You put yourself through so much, from a packed childhood to trying to land as a professional where your income depends on a company's interpretation of your talent. And you can't take a safe day job because being a professional on stage is a full-time commitment. Why keep going? Misty Copeland once said, "You can start late, look different, be uncertain, and still succeed." She was the first African-American principal dancer of the American Ballet Theater and retired recently at 43 years old. You think you're aging? She started dancing at 13, which is quite late in ballet terms, and she was faced with rejection in every shape and form. Being told that she was too old and had the wrong body for ballet, along with the prejudice that came by merely being of a different skin color. However, in her most uncertain times, she chose to keep dancing her heart out, advocating for dancers that looked like her, and all along, telling a story as simple yet impactful as painting her pointe shoes her skin color, because they weren't readily available at the time. What she proved was that emotion and strength, vulnerability and strength can coexist. And they thrive on our most uncertain moments. They thrive on the uncertainty we fear so much. Even retired, Copeland's singular focus is advocacy for dancers of color and underrepresented dancers. When she retired, she said, "This is only farewell for the American Ballet Theater. My life is still very much ballet." When we do something that we love, that gives us an identity. Uncertainty fuels us to become resilient. You don't like me for my individuality? Fine, I'll find someone who does. We learn to rely on our grit to become the best version of ourselves, and most importantly, to show up scared, pressured, and exhausted, because the little one in us would be in immense pain if we ever gave up. When people say, keep the child in you alive, I believe they talk about the strength children carry to overcome. As we grow up, we underestimate it. But we need to understand kids are not just tiny humans. They believe in the sugar plum fairy and in her magic, and that hope makes them more resilient. They need to see that their dreams are doable. We only fear them because of how uncertain we are. The normalization of a kid being laughed upon when they say they want to dance all their life has to go away. Because if your dreams don't scare you, don't bother chasing them. There's a lot that comes with a scary dream, but those struggles exist everywhere and in everything that we label as simple. It doesn't mean we conform to the negative speculations surrounding our art forms. We deem things impossible because we forget to replace that passion that has no direction with a purpose that lets us take the childhood dream further. What I'm saying is, having to step away doesn't have to be quitting if we promise to keep creating. I had to step away from ballet for reasons that were out of my control. And for the longest time, I constantly felt like I had the word quitter written across my face. However, I chose to come up here, to speak, 8 years later, with the same burning passion that 8-year-old Ryna had to go up on stage and win a gold medal. We keep going back to our passions again and again and again without noticing, because we're so anxious of what might happen if we ever took the risk of pursuing them. Look, we all try to hide it, but we've all felt anxious at some point or the other. We keep trying to control whatever is happening at times of utter uncertainty, letting outcome expectancies take over our minds and dictate how we conduct ourselves. But when you can't undo change, there's no point in trying to replicate what was as closely as possible. Hear me out when I say this. You don't have to believe everything your anxiety tricks you into believing. You know, our minds are kind of like the point shoes. They can break you. No, seriously, they can break you. But you are in control of the technique to ensure that that does not happen. Now let's face facts here. You may not be in control of a faulty material, or if you were given a particularly bad pair. But you can endure more than you thought at the end of the day. How do I know that? Because we all have resilience and grit and passion in us. We only unpack all the fear and uncertainty at different times. So next time someone tells you you can't do something, you need to do it so well that you prove their ridiculous, untrue judgment of you wrong. And if they still don't budge, their loss. Now, I'm not glorifying pain and suffering as the only way to get where you need to be. I'm simply saying it's a fight, a good fight, which is often with our past selves. Those around us may never know our stories, and that's okay, because those unfinished chapters are ours to conquer. So we can figure out what that inner kid needed. Charlie Maxey said, "Hope is the quiet song your heart can sing in spite of whatever may be going on." In your lives, in mine, we hold on to hope, much like the times we go on stage and hope we don't mess up, or when we talk to an audience and we hope they relate to what we're saying. And most of all, like the little kid who hopes that their older self will not quit on them. Perhaps I would have been taken more seriously if I wore a suit today. But I deliberately chose this. I chose the Black Swan music, and I chose to bring my really old, battered and bruised point shoes up here. I am choosing not to quit on that 8-year-old Ryna. And I hope you aren't either. Thank you.